I do have the privilege of working in the UK space industry, which is a great place to be. And I thought I'd just start off by showing you a little bit about how that industry works. So space industry in Stevenage started in about 1959. So that was the time when people thought it might be interesting to do some different things with ballistic missiles rather than point them at each other. With some work to try and develop them into space rockets. We're going to be launched from Australia, and that was really the embryonic UK space industry and European space industry. And since then, over the last 50, 60 years, we've grown to a point where satellites are part of our daily lives. So you've all used them today as you came here, telecommunications, for navigation, looking at imagery, even the timing systems across our banks based on satellite information, satellite data. So just to show you how far things have come, I'm just going to show you a short video of some of the activities we've got at the moment in our Stevenage factory. Hopefully this will come up. Here we go. So the first set of things that you'll see is really around our telecoms business. So this is really the commercial arm of what we do. Basically 100% export. It's as close as we get to a production line. Airbus builds a quarter of the world's telecommunications satellites. So if you're watching Sky TV, chances are you're watching something that's sent over one of our satellites. In Stevenage, we build the core of those telecom satellites. So you can see here propulsion tanks and the core structure. We send part of that structure down to our satellite or sister site in Portsmouth. They integrate the electronics, it does all the clever stuff. Those two elements of the satellite, the mechanical core and the electronics, are then packaged up. We send those to Toulouse for final integration, and then it goes off to launch. So really, as close as we get to a product-orientated production line. That contrasts really with our other activities, which are around Earth observation and science. This is LISA Pathfinder, a satellite that was launched in December, so you maybe heard on the news about gravitational waves. This satellite is testing the technology that will allow us to build a gravitational wave observatory in space, so the next dimension for physics and science. You see here the instrument being coupled to the propulsion module which takes it into orbit. Next satellite is called Sentinel-5 Precursor. This is being built in the factory at the moment. It's going to look at the atmosphere, to look at the gases in the atmosphere, detect ozone and so on. This is, in common with most of these, a project for the European Space Agency. What we do is we have instruments which are generally created by academia and different facilities around Europe. Our job is to engineer that into a satellite to make sure it works through its life. Next satellite, also slightly earlier phase of construction at the moment, Solar Orbiter, satellite going to go closer to the sun than anything has gone before. Engineering challenges there. Fairly obvious, getting very close to the sun, very hot at the front, but very cold at the back. And our thermal engineers have to deal with that, have to deal with the cleanliness of the instruments. Pride and Joy is our Mars rover, due to go and land on the surface of Mars later in this decade. This is our Mars Yard test area where we're testing the rovers to have its autonomous guidance, so it can steer its own way around rocks and boulders and make sure that we can do that without too much intervention from the ground. We actually built a brand new clean room facility for the Mars rover. Everything has to be biologically clean. We can't take organic matter to Mars, so we've had to build this new facility because, as I say, we don't want to get to Mars and find we've discovered life from Stevenage. So, interesting stuff, and I hope you agree that's an interesting part of the business. But let's focus back down on what we need as a core business and look at our business objectives. And this is very spookily going to echo almost exactly what Nigel Whitehead was saying earlier, but I think I can try and bring that down to some specifics that we've got in the local area and perhaps illustrate for you on the next slide how that is being supported by the Hertfordshire LEP. But just to run around our challenges, so always best to start with the people, and really the core point there is in skills and capabilities. So we have about 1,200 employees on site, most of them very highly qualified, but running graduate and apprentice programs alongside that. And we've really got a couple of challenges around that. First of all, the general process of growing the skills and capabilities, but particularly in common with a number of other businesses, really looking at the workforce demographic. So we have about 40% of our workforce today over 50, and we're expecting a real generational change. The people who've worked through that evolution of the space business over the last 20 or 30 years are now the ones who are going to approach retirement over the next 5 or 10 years. So really, we're very keen to establish now the next generation coming through. Local environment, we mentioned that this morning. So for our staff, for our visitors, really we want to be able to give them the best environment, to be able to attract talents, to be able to recruit people, to give our visitors a good time, a comfortable time when they visit us. We have, again, in common with a number of businesses, on occasion, demand for some quite sophisticated facilities. I'm at the moment facing an invitation from the European Space Agency to hold a European conference on mechanisms, which is one of our specialities. And I look around the local area thinking where we could host a conference for 600, 700 people, and choices today are limited. So we don't use that kind of facility every day, but it would be really great to see that being part of future plans so that we can take those kind of opportunities when they come up. Access. For us, certainly in terms of rail and road, very important for our visitors coming generally globally and from Europe into the airports, and we want them to have an easy time getting from the airports to our factory. Supply chain, again, mentioned that. We're a global business. We take suppliers from across Europe and the world. It would be really great if we were seeing more in the way of local suppliers, more efficiency built that way, and generally contributing to the growth of SMEs around us and wider in the UK. Maybe in addition to the points that we discussed already this morning, I'd say an important part for us as well as others is innovation. We are in a business which is not really mature yet. We're looking at new materials, new fuels, new electronics technologies to take satellites into the next generation. And if we can do that locally and we can stimulate people to be looking at those kind of innovations locally, that's going to help us and it's going to help those businesses to stand on their feet as well. I'm very conscious that we can throw out these challenges to the LEP community, to the local communities, but also this is about a partnership, this is about bringing something, and I'm conscious that we have a duty there as well. We have this fantastic inspirational business with space projects that you've seen, and that's something that we can bring into the LEP environment and use that between us to create these kind of responses to the challenges that I'm setting out here. So just finally try and bring that a bit closer to the relationship with the Hearts LEP and how we work together to meet some of those challenges. I have to say I'm a relative newcomer to the LEP world. I really started getting involved with the Hearts LEP around the STEM activities that we've got and really encouraging young people into science and engineering careers. But I started to get a bit more into the LEP business, and I was very pleased to see there's a strategic economic plan in Hertfordshire that really reflects a lot of what we want to do as a business. The headlines there, of course, global excellence in science and technology absolutely ticks the box, but also reinvigorating the places, foundations for growth. All of those things really chime very closely with what we want to do as the local business. I think as business people, we'd also say, it's one thing having a strategic plan, we also need to really focus strongly on delivery of that strategic plan. And that's where we need to be working together to make sure we can really get some tangible progress. And I have to say, when I look at those three challenge areas that I put up on the last slide, and look at what we're doing together to address some of those, it's good to see some real tangible elements coming through. So we are, as I mentioned, working very closely on STEM, on the young people building this next generation, bringing the educators and industry closer together, really showing the young people what it means to be an engineer and the attraction they can have to work on these kind of projects in the future. Part of that, the Hearts LEP has established a careers and enterprise company. We're engaged with that as business advisors. We can use that again to stimulate this young group of people and steer people into the kind of careers and business roles that we want. The local environment is probably a slightly more challenging issue for us. A number of starts on establishing a development activity around Stevenage that haven't really taken off, have led to a background of kind of scepticism. But I was really pleased to see the LEP, together with the Stevenage First Group, at least putting some steps towards an ambitious plan that would lead to the sorts of development that we'd like to see in the town and the sorts of environment that we'd like to create for our staff and our visitors. We're also really interested in the National Infrastructure Commission proposals for the growth corridor between Cambridge, Milton Keynes and Oxford. I think we're close enough to that, we can contribute strongly to that. From my own point of view, there's a strong space connection between Stevenage and the satellite applications catapult European Space Agency outpost in Harwell in Oxford. So there are some strong connections, and it would be great to take that forward. And finally, on supply chain, I think a really good model close to home that the Herts LEP has been deeply involved in is the bioscience catalyst. So a fantastic model for how to set up an incubator, SME, academia type institution which is supporting not only the mothership, if you like, the mother industry, but also the smaller businesses that are growing out of the catalyst itself. And I'm really encouraged or keen to see if we can take that catalyst into our business domain and other business domains across Herts. So I think there are a lot of encouraging signs for what we're doing with the Herts LEP, some really good examples. I think it's a place where we can really demonstrate this partnership for what we can bring as a very visible and high-profile industry, and we can bring that, continue to bring that together with the efforts of the LEP to contribute to both of our objectives. So thank you very much.